Hi, everybody. I'm honored to have been given this opportunity to share some ideas with you tonight about compassion. And I would like to start by inviting you all to join me in a thought experiment. And it goes like this. Imagine that right beside me here stands a 6-year-old girl whose name is Tina. And Tina is starting school next year, and you've been given the mission to decide which of 2 schools Tina is going to attend. And so you walk off to the first school, where the principal tells you, we want to help our children learn and grow as individuals. And we try to accomplish this by encouraging them to try things out and by being compassionate towards them when things go wrong. We point out that making a mistake, it's part of the learning process. Sounds all right. And so you walk off to the other school, where they tell you, we strive to discipline our children, and we do this by punishing them if they do anything that we don't approve of. If they make a mistake, we shame them. That's how they learn. Now, give me your child. Okay, back to you and your mission then. Which one of these 2 schools would you want Tina to attend? Now, I'm guessing, and I'm sincerely hoping, that each and every one of you chose option number 1 for Tina here. And while this is an exaggerated example, I still think it brings out an important point. Namely, that we all have this intuitive wisdom built into us, which says that encouragement, safety to learn, and compassion when things don't work out is a great recipe for building people up and helping them become great versions of themselves. But I have one more question in mind with regards to this example. Which one of these 2 principles tend to show up in your own mind when you're suffering, maybe when you've failed at something important to you, or maybe you're just remembering something from the past that tends to bring up a lot of shame? Most people, myself included, tend to say that it's actually approach number 2, that critical and judgmental approach that shows up a lot of the time. So there's a mismatch here between what we wish for others and what shows up in our own minds. Now, before we move on here, I think it's important to acknowledge that most of us do that judgmental and critical approach, at least occasionally. So if you answered approach number 2, well, welcome to the human species. At the same time, however, we also know that the more that critical and condemning approach takes center stage in our minds, the more likely we are to struggle with depression, anxiety, eating disorders, loss of creativity, and so on and so on. And the reason I've been pondering this theme of self-criticism a lot is that I work as an occupational health psychologist. And I also coach leaders, athletes, and creative artists. So I meet with a lot of people who struggle with burnout, who set excessively high standards for themselves, and who also struggle with high self-criticism. I've also personally struggled with self-criticism for a larger part of my life. So I have a visceral understanding of how it feels as well. And as a result of all of these factors, I've been on a constant search for better ways to help my clients, as well as myself, to deal with the suffering that self-criticism can bring about. And luckily, there seems to be a remedy to this inner harshness of mind. And it's called self-compassion. And self-compassion can basically be defined as treating yourself kindly, the way you would treat a good friend going through a hard time. A more specific definition can be found in compassion-focused therapy, which identifies 2 key psychological skill sets of compassion. Firstly, the ability to notice our suffering and being able to engage with it instead of trying to push it away or sort of keep it down. And secondly, the ability to find the motivation and the skills to help ourselves alleviate that suffering. So let's take this definition on a test drive, and I'll use myself as an example here. So my self-criticism tends to show up whenever I'm about to step out of my current comfort zone and do something that I care about. And it typically says something along these lines. Ronnie, you fool, you have to work harder at this or you'll screw it up. If you can't do it perfectly, don't do it at all. Now, since I don't give talks at TEDx conferences on a daily basis, you can probably imagine that this self-critical voice has paid my mind a visit or two over the last couple of weeks. And if that self-critical voice gets to run the show, then it will typically, A, it'll beat me down and keep me there instead of increasing my motivation, or B, it will make me over-prepare and over-rehearse to the degree that I don't get enough sleep nor recovery, nor do I have enough time to spend with the key people that I really care about. So some nasty consequences there. So how might self-compassion help me step out of that self-critical way of relating to myself? And how might it help you and everybody else do the same? To answer that question, think back to a moment when that self-critical voice paid your mind a visit, and your inner world maybe resembled something like this. Maybe you were really busy with a work project, maybe you made a relationship mistake, or something along those lines. And just notice how that self-critical part can really weigh you down. And it hurts to have it around. It's like, ouch. And doing what you just did there, noticing that this is actually a moment of suffering. Instead of just trying to soldier on and bear it, or trying to push it down and keep it away, that's actually the first step of self-compassion. You just did it. Another important thing to keep in mind is that it's actually not our fault that we criticize ourselves. And this can be a bit tricky. It's like, but wait a minute, it's all happening in my head, so it has to be me, right? Well, let's link self-criticism to a larger understanding of our minds. At a moment of self-criticism, our mind's inner threat system has been activated. And this is a system that we share with all reptiles and mammals. And it's basically designed to keep us away from physical dangers and threats. Basically, by making us afraid and making us flee, or by making us angry and attacking the threat. So this helps us deal with physical threats outside of ourselves. But what happens when this ancient threat system gets combined with our human evolved ability to think? And we notice something in ourselves that we don't like, or something that we think, feel, or do feels threatening to us or our reputation. Our mind's inner threat system gets activated, and then it attacks the problem, which unfortunately means that we end up attacking ourselves. And this is a predominantly human experience. For instance, we're not going to see a pet dog sitting in front of the mirror going, oh man, why did I eat that extra bone? I've got no self-discipline, I'm getting clumsy here. Neighbor Fifi's not going to like me anymore. You know, we're not going to see that in a dog, right? But we humans can do that because of our evolved thinking abilities. Abilities which at their best allow us humans to solve complex problems, like how to send a rocket to the moon and hopefully bring them safely down as well. And at their worst, can cause us to criticize ourselves. So our minds can bite us in the rear at times, basically because of a faulty evolutionary design. Our mind is quite a mess, really, when you start looking at how evolution has piled up all these different functions on top of each other. But once we see this, then we can compassionately notice that it's actually not our fault that we criticize ourselves. We've just been given these really tricky brains, which at times can cause a lot of nasty stuff between our ears. And when we see that, then we can take a step back and take responsibility for helping ourselves shift into a slightly better place. And this brings us to step number 2 of compassion, which is easing the suffering. And we can do this by calling upon another motivational system that our minds has given us, a soothing system. Now, this is a system that we share with all mammals. And it's typically activated whenever we feel relaxed and don't have anything particular to do, when we're hanging out with people whose company we enjoy, or when we're being cared for and soothed by a significant other. Now, kindness and compassion lives over here. So this system is going to be crucial for helping ourselves deal with self-criticism. Why? Because we can actually shift over from a threat-based self-criticism into a more self-compassionate stance, simply by sending ourselves signals of safety. The kind of signals our minds naturally receive in situations like these above. And there are many ways of doing this. So I thought we could try a few of them out together. Would you be willing to give it a go? Okay, fantastic. Take that as yes. Great. So let's do this exercise standing. So feel free to stand up for a moment. Thank you. And let's just start by taking a couple of deep breaths. Just breathing a bit deeper than you'd normally breathe. And allowing this deep breathing to be a symbol of safety to yourself. We can also work with our body language. So adopting an upright yet relaxed posture, if that's possible for you. And also putting on a kind facial expression. The kind of expression you'd have if you were meeting a good friend. We do this because science shows that these changes in our body language will quickly start to lower our stress hormones, like cortisol. And we can also experiment with touch, which is soothing for many of us. So just try for a moment to put one or both of your hands on your ribcage. Allowing this to be a signal of safety and a signal of kindness to yourself. And we can also work with our imagination. So bringing to mind a being that represents kindness, warmth, or compassion to you. It can be someone you know. It can be a dear pet animal. It can even be a mythical figure like Jesus Christ or the Dalai Lama. For me, it would be my grandmother. God bless her soul. Okay, let's stop at that point. Thank you so much for participating. You can feel free to sit down and take your seat. Fantastic. So now you've sent yourself several signals of safety. And that will start to even and balance your mind out a bit. Okay, you might not quite have hit like the Zen master level of calm at that moment, but you took a step in that direction, right? And this is a good point to start asking yourself some questions. Questions like, if a good friend of mine was struggling with what I'm struggling with, what would I say to that good friend? Or if I were as wise, kind, and compassionate as I can be at my best, how would that compassionate version of me relate to myself or to the situation I'm in right now? We typically see things differently from our compassionate perspectives. For instance, whereas my self-critical point of view is mostly worried about whether I'll do this talk perfectly or not, my compassionate version of me can actually see that I have a message I believe in here and that I really want to share with you guys. And can also see that behind that angry tone of the self-criticism is actually a fear. A fear I hold of not being approved of if things go wrong. And a fear of more vulnerable emotions like sadness or shame showing up if I would feel that I've failed. But my self-compassionate version of me can see that I can actually handle the self-criticism and whatever fear is behind it. And then it's possible to be kind to oneself, and I can also step forward and act on the things that matter to me, instead of letting that self-critical point of view run the show. And so what might the benefits be of making this kind of an inner shift? I once heard a leading thinker on self-compassion, Chris Germer, say that a moment of self-compassion can change your entire day. A string of such moments can change the course of your life. And I'm inclined to agree with him, because in my work, I get to share the joy my clients experience when their self-critical point of view starts to calm down a bit as their self-compassionate perspective grows, and how that can free up happiness, wisdom, creativity, and courage. Science is also pointing in the same direction, indicating that growing our compassionate perspectives is one of the absolute best things we can do to decrease mental illness, like depression and anxiety, and increase our mental well-being, satisfaction with life, and resilience in the face of setbacks. To tie our conversation up here, imagine if everybody on this planet, including you and I, were 10% more compassionate towards ourselves. What kind of benefits might that bring about for each and every one of us individually, for the people we interact with on a day-to-day basis, for groups of people across this globe, and for our civilization as a whole? My imagination tells me that as a result, the world would be a better place for all of us. And I think that is an idea worth spreading.